What if the overwhelm you're feeling in your business isn't just burnout, but actually undiagnosed ADHD? In this episode, I sit down with business coach and mom of three, Mariah Scrivens, to talk about her late in life ADHD diagnosis and how it has changed the way that she sees herself, her motherhood journey, and her business. If you've ever struggled with follow through, forgotten emails, or felt like your brain just works differently than everyone else's, this conversation is going to hit home. We explore the real life signs of ADHD in high achieving women, how it shows up in business, and why so many entrepreneurs are quietly struggling behind the scenes. Mariah opens up about hyperfixation, executive dysfunction, rejection sensitivity, and what it's really like to run a successful coaching business while navigating all of it. Plus, motherhood, twins, and writing a memoir. It's honest, insightful, and a must listen if you're neurodivergent or if you just suspect you might be. Let's dive in. I am so excited to have with us on the show today Mariah Scrivens. Welcome to the Nourished CEO podcast, Mariah.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here. I don't know about where the listeners are, but here it is sunny and the middle of the afternoon, and it's just been a great day so far. So I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I was kind of saying we had a little bit of a whirlwind morning with childcare. So I'll be interested to talk to you because I feel like for me, having young children, and I don't have twins like you do. So, kudos to you for being able to survive that one. But for me, having the two kids at the different ages is a very big mental drain for me. And so I know that there's a lot of our listeners that have kids, a lot of them with very young kids, and kind of wondering how do you run a business and do the mom thing and also handle some of the mental changes that can come either with motherhood or with aging in general, perimenopause, and also even just with a late diagnosis of ADHD, which I know that you have experience with. So before we jump in, do you want to just share a quick get to know you, for our listeners who are new to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, first of all, twins, no joke, but we'll get to that. So my name's Mariah, and I was a teacher for a couple years, specializing in kindergarten, and then along the way started building up a business. Some people are familiar with Teachers Pay Teachers. It's basically like Etsy for teachers, and you can put up worksheets and games and things like that. So I started building up that business because there really just wasn't anything for my niche, which was French kindergarten at the time. And then I met my husband on a dating app and decided to move across the country to be with him mid-pandemic. And then we got married and accidentally had one baby. And then we accidentally had two more babies because twins was not planned. And then all of a sudden I had three under two and didn't want that first business anymore. I had scaled it to six figures, but I didn't really feel connected to the teacher niche anymore, especially as I moved further and further along into motherhood. And there were some unfortunate situations within the niche and some drama within the niche that really pushed me further and further away. And eventually, one day, to make a long traumatic story short, my son had a seizure. And when we got on the other side of it, I just didn't care anymore about the things I didn't care about. And I decided right then and there I was going to switch it up and went into business coaching as per request of my brand photographer and just haven't looked back since then. I really, really love helping women entrepreneurs figure out how to grow their business in a way that they love. Often that involves doing some sort of pivoting, me being a little bit bossy. And lately it's funny that we're talking about, babies and motherhood today because I just had my coaching call today with my newly postpartum and about to be moms who were all existing clients who just were happened to all be having babies at the same time, and we decided to make a little group of them together, and it's wild. It's really wild when you switch from being an entrepreneur before having kids to then being an entrepreneur with kids
Mhm.
and balancing the difference in yourself, the difference in your capacity, and the difference in your priorities. It's really different.
Yeah. Well, this has been very timely for me just because I've seen, I think at this point, like 5 or 6 women with very successful businesses recently who announced that they were either taking an indefinite break or shutting things down and like, "I'm just gonna do the mom thing," and they're like 7 multi-seven-figure business owners, and I'm sitting here thinking, "Okay, surely this isn't a sign that I'm doing something that's crazy," right? And so I feel like that whole I'm an entrepreneur for years and then I become a mom situation is happening a lot more lately, and it's definitely not a easy path to take, and I can tell you know as well as I do that it changes a lot of stuff about running a business.
Absolutely. And the other thing I've been seeing, I don't know if you've been seeing this, is I've been seeing a lot of very established entrepreneurs announce that they're going back corporate.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, so first, I mean, for smaller, quote, not seven figures, business owners, on the one hand, yes, there's that question of, okay, what's going on? What am I not seeing here? But for me, it's also very validating and reassuring that likely everyone is experiencing the same sort of trials that we're experiencing right now in the market with extreme reduction in trust and with a pullback on spending and people wanting to be a lot more intentional about where they're investing and where they're spending their time and who they're working with. And so to me, it kind of shows, okay, so everyone's market's slowing down and some people are going to roll with it and they're going to pivot and make it work for them. And some people are just going to decide, you know what, I've had enough. And
Mhm.
there's no right or wrong answer here. But to me, it was so validating seeing all these moves of no one's doing anything wrong. This is just the reality of the situation, and it's up to you what you wanna do with that and what direction you wanna go.
Mhm. Yes, I agree, and it is something where for me, I'm also looking at it as like, well, I guess less competition is always helpful, so, we'll see where things go in another 6 months, but it's been quite shocking to see just some of the names that have dropped those posts, all in, like, succession in the last 2 weeks. So, that said, you and I are still here, we're still moving forward, we're still, this is our path that we're on. So tell me about the experience being diagnosed with ADHD. Was that something that happened before or after you had kids?
It happened after, it actually just happened in March of this year, so it has not even been, I think that's what, 6 months ago? And it was kind of one of those things that it's similar to what we were just talking about with how you're like, "Well, I saw one person, then all of a sudden I saw another person." It snowballed. It's like as soon
Mhm.
as something you're aware of it, the algorithm goes nuts, and it's like, "This is what
Yeah.
you want to see, right?" And it gives you everything. So I think that's what was kind of happening for me is that all of a sudden, subconsciously, I guess, I was looking at all of this content on Instagram about ADHD in women. And so much of it, I just kept thinking, but that's not ADHD because that's my brain. That's what I think. That's exactly what it sounds like in my brain. And then the more and more posts I kept seeing about it, the more I realized that, oh, my brain and the way I'm thinking and the way I'm experiencing the world is actually not normal in air quotes, if you can't see me right now, than what I thought it was. But I just had no idea. It wasn't on my radar at all. And it ended up being that a lot of my clients are diagnosed or were pretty sure ADHD. And it was my experience working really closely with my neurodivergent clients that showed me, okay, wait a second. There is something going on here below the surface that I wanted to learn more about. But I mean, as many eldest daughters can relate to, as soon as I mentioned it to my husband or my parents, instantly shot down. They're like, no, you're fine. You're successful. You were great in school. You didn't have trouble focusing. You got straight A's. There's no way. And I asked my therapist, and she was like, "No, no, you do. You have it. You have ADHD." And I was like, "But, like, am I lying? Am I gaslighting myself? I don't. I'm just being dramatic." And so I ended up paying for a evaluation because I knew I needed, like, the scientific cold hard proof that I had ADHD, and it was a horrible process, if anyone's wondering, just sitting through all these tests. They're hours long of people just asking you questions, and every single one you're horrible at. And so I was sitting there being like, "I am either acing this right now or failing, and I don't know." But every single thing piled on top of each other of, "Well, are you forgetful about your keys? Like, do you often intend to be somewhere on time and then you're not? Do you forget to talk to people who you haven't seen in a long time, but then it's like you haven't been apart," and all of these things just back to back to back that you never really thought about before and are perceived as flaws stacked up for literally a 4-hour test. I started crying in the middle of it. And the practitioner was so sweet. She's like, "Why are you upset right now? You're not a bad person. You just have ADHD." And I was like, "You don't know that yet. You're not allowed to diagnose me." So it was all very dramatic. But in the end, I did get the diagnosis. And for me, it just everything started clicking about my childhood. At first, I told myself, okay, late onset ADHD, I got it as an adult kind of thing. But then the more I learned about it and about myself and through the testing process, I realized like, okay, fine, I've had it all along. But in girls, especially, it's so underdiagnosed because of the way that it presents in girls versus boys. And so we kind of stereotypically think of ADHD as an 8-year-old boy who can't stop moving in class. But in girls, it's often a really hyperactive brain state. You're always thinking about things, or you're daydreaming, or you're hyper aware and you're spending so much time trying to fit in and you're fidgeting with your clothes or you're tapping your feet or you're picking your nails and all of these little things that are a lot easier to mask or to hide. So it goes kind of, under the surface for so long. But yeah, I went for it. I got the diagnosis and I mean, I'm trying not to make it my entire personality right now, but on the other hand, like it kind of is my entire personality now.
What would be some examples of things that initially came up that made you think maybe this is me?
Yeah. So a big one for me is hyperfixation. So for example, I'm redoing my website, right? And before I had kids, I would stay up days at a time, not wanting to sleep because I just want to do something. As soon as I'm interested in it, I don't want to stop until it's done. And I had always thought, I don't understand how people go to an office and they just work and then they leave and there's no start and finish to the day. Like you just work at whatever pace you decide until it's time to go and then you leave. And that's why I was drawn to teaching because there's bell times. You start, you stop, and you're done. And so that was always so confusing to me because I like task completion when I'm interested in it. But then there's other things that I just cannot convince myself to start doing. And little tiny examples, one that really got me, I was scrolling reels and I saw this example of when you get out of the shower, you sit on your bed and you're wrapped in the towel, and then you just sit there for like 30 minutes. That's it. Every single time I would get out of the shower. I mean, before having kids, when you have kids, none of these things are possible. I would sit there and just not want to get dressed. And it's just like the getting your brain to click on and move into the next task. That's called executive function. And I just didn't have it. I couldn't do it. Blurting is a big one where you're just blurting things out all the time. Relating to people with your own experience and stories is very ADHD. Having a song playing in your head all the time, very ADHD. The fact I'm reading my son bedtime stories in an animated tone with multiple voices while having a full other strategy session in my brain at the exact same time. It's like I'm not even present in the bed reading a story because I'm here elsewhere. That's very ADHD. The picking my nails and my hair and the constantly fidgeting all around, all of these things. And like my hobby graveyard, I would say was a big one for me where I decide I'm gonna go all in on a hobby. I get all the things and then I don't like either don't start or do it for one time and then give up. Those are all like pretty classic surface level
Mhm.
ADHD things that kind of started cluing me in.
Yeah, and how does that show up in business for you?
For me, it's hard to not be constantly launching new offers
Mhm.
because I love the excitement of a novel offer and starting out new things and the marketing of it and all of that excitement. It's really hard for me to do evergreen things where you're just talking about the same thing and you're trying to keep the energy up and, recycling your marketing and all of that on an ongoing basis. I do find that hard. I find it really, really hard to do the things that my brain perceives as boring. Like my
Mhm.
poor, sweet, sweet bookkeeper has to wait 4 days for me to reply to her emails because as soon as I see them in my inbox, I don't even want to deal with it. I cannot open it. It just stares at me. And I rationally know she is asking me a very simple question that it will take me 25 seconds to answer. But I am stuck and it feels so embarrassing and lame to say. It's like, why can't you just do that? It's not a big deal. You know it's not a big deal. But I just won't. I have one in my inbox right now that I've been avoiding because I just can't. It's so boring. It's not fun. It's not easy. It's just I can't force myself to do it. So those sorts of things I find are really hard.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm curious because some of this is sounding like things that if somebody didn't know someone had a diagnosis, they might think is just, and this is not meant to be like offensive or anything. It's just something
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I know that for me, when I see clients that might be exhibiting some of these behaviors or potential clients, like people in the audience, whatever, where it's like you send an email and it's left on read for like weeks. You send another follow up, hey, just checking in, no response for, a week. And now I'm starting to wonder, okay, maybe that's somebody who has ADHD. Like maybe they want to respond to the email, but they like, for whatever reason, they can't. And
Mhm.
it sounds like you work with at least a number of people with that diagnosis. If somebody is with that diagnosis, someone you're trying to sell to, what would you be needing to adjust, or what would be an indicator that maybe that is something? Is stuff that I'm saying like on that track where it's like, hey, if that's what's happening during the sales process, maybe there's a different approach you need to take? Cause I'm just wondering, I'm asking because I feel like I've seen such an influx of this recently where people apply and say, yes, I want to go, like, send me the information. And you send them the information and they open the email and they click it. And it's just like, they, like, don't respond, and then you send them an email, they don't respond, and for me, my husband always is like, "Not everybody acts like you, Laura," and I'm like, "I get it," but also, I'm like, "Just tell me no. If it's a no, it's no big deal, just tell me no, or, like, tell me if you have a question, just respond," right? And so, I'm just curious if that first of all, if I'm even remotely on track for, like, maybe that's part of the reason, I'm not saying it is for everybody, but and if it is there a different approach that would maybe work better for that person?
It's hard because one of the big things with ADHD and a lot of other neurodivergences is rejection sensitivity. And this is something that I've struggled with my entire life. And I'm actually writing a memoir, right? Well, I guess it'll be out by the time we listen to this. But in my memoir, I really had to come face to face with how much rejection sensitivity has impacted my life. And it kind of comes with two sides. So the one is that you don't ever want to let people down, and saying no and, denying that service or telling someone, no, I can't invest right now, or I'm not interested. I found something different. Whatever it is, I've changed my mind. That's really, really hard because you feel like they're going to hate you. You feel like they're going to be so mad at you. So when you're saying, I don't mind. I just want to know yes or no. Like, we don't believe you. We're like, no, she's going to be mad. She's going to go to the group chat. She's going to tell them that I changed my mind. There's going to be this smear campaign against me. Everyone's going to be judging me. That's very real. That is that response that you have that is so logical and reasonable, which is like everything my husband ever does, seems completely unfathomable to me. So avoidance of that judgment and that perception feels easier, even though that person is struggling with it. Because every time they remember and they open their inbox, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't reply to Laura. I need to reply to Laura. Then they forget because they get distracted and do something else. The amount of times I have gone to answer an email, but then I see another email that I reply to, which brings me to my honey book. And then I need to go and do this other thing. And then before I know it, I have not replied to the email, but I don't have time anymore because now I got to go pick my kids up, whatever it is. That happens so much. And I basically am never mad about being followed up with ever. Because if I am ignoring you, then I just continue to do the exact same thing. And I'm like, okay, I still feel bad about it. But if I have just been genuinely forgetting or I do want to do it, then the follow up is nothing if not a nudge and showing me that I'm still top of mind to you, which is actually very caring and considerate versus, oh, I was just some girl she was pitching to who then moved on. Rejection sensitivity is where every single perceived judgment or no feels like world ending. So if you are someone who has ADHD and you go to pitch someone and they say no, it's not going to be a reasonable response like what you just said of like, okay, it wasn't right. And we move on. It is like, they hate me. I'm horrible. I should quit and burn my business down. And so we attribute that to the other side and we think that's how you're going to feel. And so we do everything we can to avoid that. And I'm not saying these are good strategies or explanation, not an excuse kind of
Yeah.
vibe. So that's what I would say is likely happening. But it's also, I mean, I'm noticing a similar thing for my clients where it seems like a yes. They're on the disco call. It's yes, 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 yes. They send out a proposal and then it's cricket. And I do think that there is an aspect of the forgetfulness, an aspect to there's so much going on. I also think that people want to say yes, but then they step away, they talk to their partner, they look at their bank statement, whatever it is, and they decide, I can't do it. There's that fear. And then there's a shame that comes with that of if it is a financial objection, having to come back and say that can feel very embarrassing for people. And so the
Mhm.
ghosting is a more preferable approach for them. At least that's what I'm thinking and what I'm seeing these days.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good insight because for me, I'm always like, whenever I am in a sales conversation, and I'm not saying this as like a judgment call or anything, it's just that this is how I approach these things. If I have had a conversation with somebody and they've sent me, the information that I asked for, and it's not like it's like they're cold pitching me or something. I ignore cold pitches all day, every day. So we're not talking about cold pitching, but it's somebody who you've had, multiple conversations with. They've sent you the information. For me, it's like, I'm just like, I'll just tell them, hey, not right now, or, I'm gonna have to wait on this or something. And so for me, it is hard to think about why wouldn't somebody do that if they are generally a respectful person. So this is actually helpful for me to understand because I do think sometimes I can get frustrated just to be like fully transparent when I have situations like this where we have put in the energy to follow up to say, hey, just let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help explain things more or anything. And then to get that like red receipt without a response is like, okay, great. That's awesome. So in that situation, because again, I do think this, whether it's an actual ADHD diagnosis or just, I just feel like people are so distracted, busy, tired, all dopamine crashed out from social media.
Mhm,
Like there's just, you don't even have to have neurodivergence to be like overwhelmed right now. Is there anything that you feel like, I mean, you said follow-ups, which I am a big proponent of follow-ups. I think, people do not follow up enough.
mhm,
Probably somebody with ADHD might be hesitant to follow up because they don't wanna bother the person or they think,
mhm.
they haven't answered because they hate me kind of thing, as you were saying. But I'm a big like, I tell my clients 5 plus times, and then, yeah, if you get to, like, 8 and they haven't responded, maybe that's a sign, but, they're like, "Oh, I followed up 1 time," and it's like, "Okay, that is not enough." So in addition to additional follow-ups, what else might work if you either are somebody with ADHD and all of the, like, following up in a sales conversation stresses you out, or if you're somebody who works in a space that likely has people that have that diagnosis and you don't wanna, like, bash your head against the wall trying to get them either to commit or to just say, "No, I'm not interested," and just kinda, like, wrap that conversation up.
Yeah, so for the first part, when it comes to getting yourself to reach out, I really focus on the fact that sales are education, and all you're doing is your job, which is educating people about what you do and then inviting them to make a decision. And if someone hasn't answered you and you are automatically assuming that the decision is no, then you're missing out on those people who do just need a little bit more time or who did need to pay off their credit card before they could put another expense on it, or who did need to sleep on it, or whose toddler had an accident in the middle of when they were putting their thing in, or maybe they're like me and they can literally never remember their passwords to anything, so they couldn't sign in. There are so many reasons why, and we cannot assume anything. And so I'm the same as you. I always tell my clients, just follow up. You're not bothering anyone. All you're doing is presenting them with the opportunity to benefit from your services because you're not being sketchy out here. It's not a money grab. You are legitimately delivering something of value to the customer. Yes, they're giving you money, but you are giving them something in return. So as long as it's a reciprocal relationship out here, we're in the clear and we are, working ethically. So reminding yourself that all you're doing is providing an opportunity to them, the opportunity to say yes or no. And if they say no, okay, we know that and we move on. It's more likely going to be a not right now. And that's totally fine too. We respect the decision and we move on. But it's okay to keep asking. It's okay to put yourself out there. I really like to encourage people to go with a consent model where we're not cold pitching. Even if it's a warm lead and you know they're going to be perfect for your program, you're going to open it up by talking to them and saying, listen, I really think you're a great fit for this. Can I tell you about it? And then they've given you that permission and you can go in and you can pitch them. When we're following up, if they've left you on red, then all you have to do is send a message saying, "Hey, just checking in to see if you've come to a decision on this." The other thing I think is really important in regards to kind of like the culture and climate of your organization is establishing a open and trustworthy, I guess, relationship with your leads so that they do feel like they can come to you and say no, and they're not going to be hit with the objection busters. Because I think that is something that is really, really taught in the coaching space where a no is not a no, it's a not yet. And I know I just kind of said that, but I would never approach a client that way. I would mentally accept it as, okay, it's not the right time for them right now, and then move on with my day. I think that the toxicity comes in when it's like, they said no, but I don't believe them. I'm going to keep pushing and I'm going to turn that no into a yes. That's not, to me, what no, not yet means. To
Mhm.
me, no, not yet means maybe next term. Maybe I'll do a few more things and then I'll be ready. Not, I think I can, pressure you into changing it into a yes because you gave me a financial objection. For me, a financial objection, especially right now, is a full stop. I'm never going to push that. It is not my business what you do with your money and how you want to spend it. And I think that when you are really explicit about that in your marketing on your sales page about how you're not out here trying to make sales for the sake of sales that are going to waste people's time and money. The more that you talk about that, the more you layer it into your discovery calls like, listen, I'm not here to pressure you. I'm not here to tell you, like, you have to decide right now or sign by the end of the call. I genuinely want this to feel good for both of us. Please know you can come to me with any questions at any time. I am going to reach out to you a few times. I'm going to follow up with you. You can let them know that you are going to be there for them and you're going to keep following up from them. And then all you're doing is following through with your word. They can unfollow you. They can, get off your email list, whatever it is. That's 100% their decision. But if you would feel more comfortable letting them know about your sales approach, I'm going to follow up with you. Go ahead and take the night. Think about it. I'm going to message you tomorrow. I always like to say, leave the ball in your court so that when you are following up, it's expected and it's not some sort of weird, feels bad kind of moment for your client. It's just, I'm following up like I said I was going to.
Mhm. So then I have another question, and now this is like turning into a how to sell to people with ADHD. I did not know this was going to go in this direction because again, it's like and like you said, the goal is not to just sell to somebody who doesn't want what you're selling. The issue that I think that I'm seeing more of now is you're selling to somebody who said they really wanted it and then is like having a hard time pulling the trigger and doesn't necessarily have a clear answer as to why. So when we talk about things like scarcity, urgency, if you're like, I literally don't have spaces that can just be open forever and you can just come back and get them whenever you want. Is there is there like a sweet spot for being ethical with saying, "Hey, like let's finalize this decision even if it's a no," versus kind of just being this like open-ended, "Yeah, you can just decide whenever you want." Because my thought would be somebody who does maybe struggle with neurodivergence or ADHD that having this big open like who even knows when I need to make this decision by could actually make it harder for them to make a decision versus saying, "Hey, like let's agree to finalize this decision by this date." What do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think giving people parameters and giving them those just concrete numbers to work with is actually very caring because you're not out here being ambiguous. You're not out here using sleazy tactics of, oh, like there's only a couple spots left, but not actually being truthful about it or not actually following through with anything that we're saying. There's a lot of false urgency out there, which I think really is contributing to the lack of trust that a lot of people feel. So, there's definitely nothing wrong with having those expiry dates. That's what I have. I have my programs, they start on a day, right? They start. And then if you're not in by that date, then you're not in. If I have extra spots, which I sometimes do, and you wanna come in at a later date, maybe you just found me, whatever it is, that's fine. But at the end of the day, like, we're running business, we're running programs, it's all very reasonable that we need to have cart closes and cart opens and launches and all of that. I think the difference here is the expectation that someone's going to learn about your offer and sign into, a 5K, 10K package within 4 days is getting lower and lower. And I think that we really need to be looking at our business as a whole and extending the buying cycle and giving people more time to be connecting with you and opting into micro offers and seeing the results of your clients before we expect them to actually convert. So I've been experimenting with way longer carts than ever before. Before it would be, 5 days, that's it, you're in, you're out. My last launch, I did it for over a month. I had
Oh,
to do this.
wow.
Yeah, and I just said, I did a heavy sales push at the beginning. Here's what's happening, here's what's going on, here's how many spots I have. And then I just let my authority build in between. I took my time, kept going, kept, marketing as usual, having conversations. And then it was the week before the program started and I did another push for it. And it just needs to be so much slower and so much giving people the space to make that decision because At the same time, yes, it is supported to have deadlines, but it can also just scare people in the other direction. If they're like, okay, you know what? I can't afford it right now and it's too much pressure and I'm out. That's very common, especially right now when budgets are so tight and people are trying to be so careful. So making sure they have enough space to make a decision, whether it's yes or no, is really critical. So extending out your launches, extending out your sales conversations, extending out your disco call. Maybe it's not 15 minutes anymore. Maybe it's 30. People need more time. And I think that's totally reasonable to give them that time, especially when you're expecting an ongoing relationship and you're hoping to get, referrals and an extended relationship with this person. And that's just the reality of the situation, at least what I'm seeing right now and how I'm choosing to operate my sales strategy is
Mm.
just more time, more information, more generosity when it comes to building those relationships and talking about what it is to expect moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like people do things it's almost like a black and white spectrum on that one. Because some people are like, "You're in, you're out, like, just go, we make fast decisions here," and that's up to them to run things that way, but I think it's as you're saying, it's good to be able to make decisions that align with what you wanna create and how you wanna show up, and it sounds like it's working well, and you don't have to pressure somebody to make a decision in 24 hours or they'll never get this offer again, which is I don't like that style. Well, Mariah, I know you have to wrap up. You got your kiddos to go pick up. So, where can our audience connect with you to learn more about you and follow you and learn more about what you have to offer?
Well, you can definitely find me on Instagram. I'm there way more than I should be because unlike I feel like the majority of the world, I actually love posting on Instagram. If I could post 17 times a day, I would. So you can find me at Mariah Makes It Happen. I also have my memoir that's just released, and it is a book that's basically my girlhood dream of wanting to be an author come into fruition. And it's all about my journey through teens up until just a few months ago, actually building one business, burning it down, building it up again and navigating it all with undiagnosed ADHD and what that looks like in friendships and pretty much everything we've been talking about today in regards to neurodivergence and how much I've been learning about it and all the things I didn't know that I needed to know and all of that. And it's really raw and honest and funny and just great. So I'd love if you would grab a copy of that. There's the ebook and the paper book, and we'll link that for you in the description. But it was just so nice to talk, and I'm an open book about anything. So if anyone listening or Laura yourself, you have more questions about selling to ADHD or the way our brains work or anything like that, just don't hesitate to ask me.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you so much for I know this conversation was not necessarily what we planned out, so I appreciate your openness and willing to let me ask the questions that I've been wondering recently. I've definitely been seeing some of this stuff come up. So thank you so much for your time and we'll see you guys here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and it brought you value, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute to leave a review over on iTunes. Your feedback not only helps more amazing coaches and practitioners like you find the show, it also helps me keep creating the kind of content that you want more of. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, search for the Nourished CEO podcast, scroll down and tap that write a review button. It only takes a minute and it means the world to me. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.